Hi, this is Isabel. I see some people that have signed up, so thank you for being here. So I'll get started because I value my time and your time. I think it's important. So I'll get started by introducing myself for people who don't know me. My name is Isabel Litzler. I'm the founder and director of Pleiad HC. I do career planning and career counseling. I help people with their job search, or also entrepreneurs who are thinking about creating a company but not sure. So this is basically what I've been doing for a year and a half now in Geneva. As for you, if you're in career transition right now, you're wondering what you should be doing or what kind of opportunities, this is the right webinar for you. So in terms of logistics, you will have a Rubik's Cube you can click on, and I'll be repeating this for people coming regularly, and you can ask questions if you have questions, and I'll be happy to answer even afterwards on Meetup as well. This webinar is being taped right now, so it will be available for replay on my YouTube channel. So if you have friends today that couldn't connect for whatever reason, it's going to be there for them to watch at any time. So the topic today, I like doing this webinar because I think it's interesting. I like obviously career planning and career coaching, and I also like creating a business. I think it's exciting. And when I started, I actually didn't have a lot of support around a lot of technical things that I realize now are very important. So that's why I'm doing these webinars as well, is to help people avoid pitfalls. That was mainly my reason. So what I will be discussing on the topic of starting a business plan is really, what is your reason to start a business? I think this is very important, is the why. That's the foundation. I'll talk about what is a business plan, you know, if some of you have an idea but not quite sure. And finally, I'll present my mind model I've created. It's a very simple one-pager with the basics, so I'll talk about that a little bit. So the first thing is really, what is the reason for creating a business? I see a lot of people saying, well, I'd like to do this, and this is the idea, but they're not quite clear yet. So before jumping into anything, i.e. creating a company formally, or even creating the business plan, it's really, what is your idea, and is the idea feasible? So for example, I think a good reason would be you have a conviction about something, maybe a mission. I'm thinking about humanitarian work, or maybe you're passionate about a topic and you know that there's a market for it. Or maybe also you have a high potential market that you see is growing and you think, well, maybe now is the right time to get into the niche. This is typically entrepreneurial thinking. You know, you see something and you're like, this is actually a good niche to get into right now. So you have to have a sense also of timing is important. Now, the thing I want to share with you is really how you start, what type of activities, because the business plan is already quite a lot of work, but I think there's many things that you could do before. So for example, just really wondering, you know, what type of business idea do I have, you know, and get feedback from people. That's very important. You know, are people saying, well, this is a great idea? Or are they saying, well, you know, you already have these websites, you know, on the market. So maybe just kind of testing whether this is a good idea or not. So I have some things for you which I call the general friend advice, something I would share with a friend, you know, that's coming to me and say, well, I want to start a business. So the first thing is really, are you looking at articles? Are you looking at the press and blogs to see if this is something that has some value and people are interested in? Because something you might be passionate about may not interest anybody else but you and your close friends. So it's very important to see the potential of it. It's also, what I would also advise is pick something that doesn't necessarily need a lot of upfront investment. That's also very important, because if you have a business idea but you think, okay, I have to, you know, have partners immediately, I need to have a warehouse, I need to order. I've been talking to a lot of people recently who don't want to continue their business anymore, and one of the reasons is really the hassle with it. Just talked to somebody yesterday actually who said, well, I have an idea, but really the cost is so expensive to import into Switzerland, and at the end it's not worth it. So I'm thinking about importing, exporting goods. You know, could seem at the beginning like a good idea, but could be actually costly. I'm thinking about things where you would need to invest to get the goods, you know, first, and then sell them. So you would already need to know if people are interested in your product. So my advice is to test very, very small. So I'm thinking about an example of a t-shirt. You know, maybe you have a t-shirt that's personalized, and you can start selling it already on a Facebook page, or something very small where you don't need to invest already on a website and development and everything. So that would be my recommendation. And really the first thing is actually about selling to people that are interested in your product. So you want to determine what is your segment, that's marketing term, and what type of things are you going to sell to this segment. So it's very important to test small. The next thing is to write your idea or concept in one line. So if I ask you now, what is your concept? Can you summarize it in one line? And you don't want something that's extremely complicated that no one else will understand but you. So I'm thinking about mine, for example, it's helping people achieve their career goals faster. And then I can explain a little bit how I do this, via webinars, via career coaching, private coaching, etc. So it's just one line that summarizes what is your thing. So maybe it's selling something at a lower cost, and you're dealing on the cost issue, or you're promoting, education for, or something that just summarizes it. The next thing is really to start with cheap online products. So I'm thinking about now it's actually becoming less and less expensive to sell online. So of course I'm thinking a Facebook page now you can sell without even investing necessarily in a huge website. There's websites such as Shopify or Etsy for creative things. I can give you all these names if you want. You can send me an email because I have built up a few resources for entrepreneurs. But you can easily now start selling without investing anything. And that's the idea, is that you already want to see if your product is selling before you're investing in a big website that you need to maintain. And now with online tools such as Shopify, for example, you can easily create a store online and see if people are buying your product. And you have to remember that people are not going to rush to your product and buy it, so you will need to advertise. Which brings me to my next advice, is really to see how much effort and how much manpower you would need behind your website. Because in the end, you need to promote the page, you need to make sure you have traffic, and all that is manpower. It's actually, are you going to spend the time doing it? Do you hire someone that will do it, which will cost money? So we're talking about money that's coming out when you don't even have sales yet. So all these things need to be thought beforehand. And the business plan to some extent can help you, but I think giving you already some few hints will help you determine whether you have something of value to sell if you're thinking about starting a business. The other thing is really quantify very much the business, how much you would need to get the business going, and what is your business model. I think too many times I see people throwing themselves and starting something, but they don't really have a way of monetizing. And that's something you will hear everywhere. If you're in the entrepreneur type of crowd, you will hear this very fast. It's what type of business model do you have? How are you going to monetize? So that's going to be important. Are you monetizing via membership? Are you monetizing via, you have a product that you sell immediately? But if it's consulting services or something that's a little bit less straightforward than a product, how are you planning to make money out of it? So that's something that needs to be thought about very early on. So make also regular assessments. So if you start a business, make sure that regularly you assess basically the sales. Is this working? Are people showing interest or not? So these are just some preliminary advice, food for thought for you to kind of get you on the right track. Also, when you start a business, I want to spend a little bit of time on that because I think also it's important, expenses linked to starting a business. So of course you need to push money forward already from the beginning. So for example, people who say, well, I want to register my business. There's cost linked to that. Whether it's an independent status or a different type of status, you have to pay. You have to pay for the notary, you have to pay for the registry, you have to pay your taxes, etc., etc., etc. So that's money coming out already. The other thing is the fees to get set up. And I'm thinking in Switzerland, for example, probably you need somewhat of an office or a place to work. So that's an expense. And if you want to have a professional address, you need an office, or at least a co-working space, but a co-working space is already an expense. So that's something you need to pay for. You will need to pay for your travel. If you go and meet clients and you're working maybe Europe-wide, you need to travel. You need to pay for your hotel, for your trips. All that is also money coming out. And of course, you have to pay for your fixed expenses. So even if you're working from home, you have fixed expenses, your web connection, your printer, your computer, etc. So all these things I'm talking about are money that you will need before you even make a penny. So that's why when people come to me and say, well, is this the right time to start a business for me? I always say, for the first year and a half, you can almost count on making no profit. So basically, you're going to run on your savings or money you have aside or money you put towards your business. So it's really important because if you're in a situation now where you're a bit fragile financially, I really don't think it would be professional or responsible for me to say, yeah, go for it. I hear many people give advice to entrepreneurs, say, yeah, think big, go for it, follow your heart, etc. Yeah, it's great, but in the end, if you're in a situation where you need to pay your rent and you have expenses, I think it would put you in a very difficult situation. So the way I recommend it is rather to put some money aside first. So whether you say, okay, for the next year and a half, I just put money aside because I'm working right now, and then I start with a bit of funding. That's how I would do it. And therefore, you're less pressured because you know that the money is not going to come immediately. So that's my recommendation. The other thing I wanted to mention is a statistic from the Forbes magazine from January 2015, actually. And it's probably a statistic you may have heard that 90% of startups fail. So of course you think, well, it's not really reassuring. And there's some reasons behind that are shared in the article. And the first one is really, are you selling a product that the market wants? And that's why I just said before, very important to understand if you have a market for it. So that's the number one failure reason. The number two failure is that the entrepreneur does not have a 360 vision. Remember when I said earlier, are you willing to put the manpower behind something? You will need to be good at a lot of things. Of course, selling and dealing is the first thing. And we don't necessarily have this skill in the get-go. Let's say you were a financial analyst or you were a consultant working for a big company, and all of a sudden you have to do everything yourself. You don't have go-to people anymore. So you will have to upskill yourself extremely fast, or you will need to contract with other people, which will cost you money, obviously. So really the 360 vision is something to think about. What skills do you have right now? Where will you need help? That's important. The other thing that could happen is actually, it could be a problem, is that the startup goes too fast. So let's say you weren't prepared in your business plan and all of a sudden, boom, your startup is growing and you will say, well, great, this is fantastic. But if you're not prepared, you will not be able to answer client demands and therefore they won't be happy. So think about that in your business plan. We'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing you need to think about is really a quick recovery. So you need to understand, okay, maybe I didn't do well in the first trimester. What will make the difference between a successful startup and a non-successful is how are you going to change that. So if you think, okay, this product maybe didn't work, people don't like red t-shirts, but they like blue and they want blue. So I'll make my t-shirt blue and I can do it quickly. So it's how fast you can change with the client requests. So I'll give my example. When I started, I wanted to do, it was a bit large. I wanted to do human resources consulting. So it was quite vast, because in human resources consulting, you have a lot of things. And from that, and that was a few years back, it wasn't really picking up, or I didn't have really a lot of success with companies, getting calls. And then I realized I need to focus. I need to find what is it that I want to do. So it came out as, okay, training. Then from training, it got even more narrowed down to what part of training do I like? Well, it's really helping people with their careers. And then with time, I finally pinned down what I was really good at and what I liked, which is more the career coaching. But it took me a while to get there. And I think that's also an exercise you will have to do to be very good at something. You need to pinpoint what is the one thing that you want to do in your business. So if you're doing IT consulting, that's a bit too vast, or marketing consulting, maybe think of one thing in marketing or in IT that you can actually have the most value on, and that people will recognize you as the person to go to for that particular thing. Because in the end, to be successful, you will need differentiation. The way you will attract people is how are you going to make the difference. So someone who's a marketing consultant, yeah, great, but marketing is very vast. But if you say, I'm your digital expert on, for example, boutiques online. So if you think about a niche, not only am I a marketing professional, but I'm a marketing professional in digital marketing for companies that are selling exclusively online. And there I think you have a chance, because there's a lot of websites now with online, I call that online retailing. They have a website, they have a great product, they have no clue how to get it seen by the public and how to get, for example, more traffic, and they don't know how to analyze their Google Analytics. So I think there's a market for marketing people that are very good at helping online retailers exclusively. So that's just a sideline, but just to give an example. So business plan, you all heard this great word. What is it about? What type of things do you have in a business plan? So I think it's helpful for anybody, not only people who are looking for funding, but also even if you're an independent consultant, having some kind of a plan, because in the end, that's what it is, of what you're going to do and how is very helpful. Because in the end, if you don't have direction, how are you supposed to achieve your goals? So I really believe in business plan. I believe in a simplified business plan, but I'll give you the main focus of a business plan. So it's something structured that gives you a concrete project with different parts of it. So for example, you will have in a typical business plan, it's about 30 pages. Those are the ones you can find on the market that people use when they go to the bank and request a loan and so forth. So it would have an executive summary. So executive summary is a half a page to a page, and it gives basically the main headlights of why you're doing this business, why is it interesting, what kind of business model you will use. So it's really the headline of why you're even starting a business. The marketing plan is the second part. So you need to have marketing if you want to be successful. So how are you going to sell your product? The banker will want to see that for sure. How do you plan to get yourself known? How do you plan to sell? And I think a lot of people get into businesses when they have no clue how they're going to market their products. And I can even say I was there. I don't have a marketing background. So when I started, I had some ideas, but I definitely didn't have a clear plan, and I really suffered from that. So I think really defining your marketing plan early on is very important. If you think it's very difficult for you to grasp the concept, maybe also talking to marketing expert will be helpful to write your business plan and help you at least on the strategy part. For example, are you going, so marketing, basically there's two aspects. There's the push and pull. So push used to be what I call the old way of doing marketing. Not so long ago, you would see a lot of advertisement. This is the product, it's wonderful, you should use it. So it's online, I mean, it's in the newspapers, on television, it could be in different forms, so it's banners, and basically you're screaming out to the public hoping they buy your product. So that to me is the old way. Now the new way is pull. It's really how do you get people to like your brand, to like what it represents, so that people buy it. So in the end, if you think about products, coffee is coffee, a t-shirt is a t-shirt in the end. So why are you going to buy from this person rather than this person? So the marketing plan right now is to say we want to have a story to tell. That's what you will read about. Marketers are saying they're writing stories, they're posting interesting information so that people say, wow, this brand is great. I also like what it represents. For example, they have an ethics. I think now we're talking a lot about sustainable development. Maybe the product was made using natural products. All these are things that will drive people to come to your website or sign up with you. So you could see what could be your strength if you develop a business. Maybe you go the sustainable route or the natural product route, or you want to help a certain category of individuals. So basically, this is going to be the pillar of your marketing strategy. That's how you would write it. So I'm sharing that with you because it's something I've learned throughout the last couple of years, is how to use this strategy to grow a business. I'm not, again, the expert. I think you could probably get even more information from a marketing expert, but that's the main pillar. It's really, I think, pull strategy is the best one. It's really getting people to come to you. And that's what everyone wants in the end. It's to have a lot of traffic to their website, people liking what you represent. And then they're ready to do business with you because they already know that you're a person that they can trust. And this is the key word. Is your business trustworthy? And you can do this via a lot of different manners. And I've learned how to do this as well. So that's for the marketing part. Then you have the operational plan, which is the third part of the business plan. So you need to explain in your plan a little bit how are you going to work? For example, are you going to have multiple offices, or is it just in one place? How many people are going to work for you? How do you plan to operate? So is it only online, for example? Do you have retail stores? I'm thinking, for example, if you want to open coffee shops, you will probably have some physical stores in place. So that's for that part. Management and organization is number 4. So how are you going to run the organization? So if you're an independent and you're doing this exercise, probably it's just a solopreneur type of thing for now. But maybe at some point you need a partner, or maybe you need to have assistants. So that's going to be part of the management and organization. Again, going back to what I said, it's good to plan what I call the SWOT. So it's really what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and you can see what you need. So for example, if you're someone that's extremely good with strategy, but you're not so much in the operations, maybe you need to think about having someone to support you there. And the second thing is really, what do you do in case of success, and what do you do in case of non-success or failure? So you need a plan also for that. So if your organization grows very fast, my advice would be to already have phone numbers of contacts of people that could jump in and come and help you. So it could be potential future employees, or it could be, for example, organizations that would offer staff for you. So I'm thinking in terms of virtual assistant, for example, you can have online support with an organization behind it. So they would be able to fulfill all your needs, and they have a staff behind. So it's really organizations you could work with that would be able to provide the manpower for you, or it could be temp agencies as well, or anything like that. So that's for the management and organization. The next thing you need is a financial plan. So how are you going to make money, basically, and what are your expenses? That's also part of it. You have incoming and you have outgoing. I think people probably underestimate the outgoing. Why? Because we don't necessarily know exactly how much we spend, especially if it's small amounts, because it can seem very strange, but if you go for a meeting, for example, and you have parking, that's 20 francs or 15 francs. So it's little amounts here and there that you don't necessarily think are going to be expenses, but when you add them up, you're like, wow, I've spent already maybe 2,000 francs, just on little things. And you need to count that as expense immediately in your business plan. So if you're going to travel, again, things like that. And how do you plan to monetize? So if you sell X products, what is going to be your net on that? And that's also something people underestimate. They think probably a bit too high. They think that they might sell more than they actually do. Selling is actually very difficult. Even if you have a great product, even if it's something that you tested and you think, well, there's a potential there, sometimes people will be very nice to you and say, yeah, if you put this product on the market, I will be the first one to buy it. And then in the end, they don't. So, I talk to entrepreneurs that have online retail boutiques, for example, and they say, yeah, I've got a lot of likes on Facebook and people are actually looking at the post and, there's traffic, but then they're not buying. They're not clicking on buy. And in the end, it's really what will drive your profit is how much are you selling? So to go from having the business built up and having traffic on it, this is going to take a lot of time. And to get people to actually put the product in their basket is going to be a long time. So in your business plan, this should be realistic. If you think that you're going to sell product, on month number 2, I can tell you that's not going to happen. So really take into account the time you will need to build up the brand, get people to like it, and at the end make the purchase. And that's probably going to be a good 6 months there, I would say, unless you have already a huge network and they're already buying the product from you, maybe informally or things like that. The other thing I wanted to mention, because probably most of you are based in Switzerland, there are some activities that require authorization before you actually start the business. So I'll just give you a few examples. One of them is banks. So if you're going to work basically in any financial services type of business, you will need special authorization. The other one is hotel and restaurants. Anything that has to do with food or selling food, that's also requiring an authorization. Health is also one that's quite hard to get into. anything that has to do with lawyers, notaries, placement agencies. So if you're going to be a headhunter or placement, you need an authorization for that in Switzerland. Import-export, for some of you who may be interested in import-export, that's an authorization, an activity that needs an authorization. If you're going to deal with pharma or cosmetics, you may not think necessarily about it immediately, but that's something that's under scrutiny. So you need to actually get authorization. I can also give you the link of the service that takes care of that. It's the service of the economic promotion in Switzerland. I have the one for Geneva, the phone number and the email. So if you're thinking about building a business in these categories, I can give you the link so you can check with them whether you need an authorization or not. So sideline on my business. So I do career coaching. I've been doing it now for a year and a half in Geneva. I have a website called pleiadhc.com. So why Pleiad? Because it's a constellation of stars, and I believe that everyone is a potential star. Maybe they haven't been because they weren't in the right job, but everybody should have a chance to find the job that they like and grow and be happy. That's my belief. So I'm trying to help people get in the right direction immediately so they don't waste too much time in jobs that are not bringing them any kind of satisfaction. I work based in Geneva, but I also deliver coaching anywhere. I have Skype, so my clients are quite happy to talk to me via Skype. So it can be just general coaching where people have questions for me. Maybe they want me to work on their, what I call the tools. So it's the resume and the cover letter. I can help them with their market potential. You know, so maybe you're new to Switzerland and you think, well, what kind of companies would I attract with my profile and what should I do? So I help with that. I call that the positioning. I help also with entrepreneurs. If you have an idea, I can help you with the actual project itself and whether it's viable or not. I think this is very important. It's really testing whether you have a good project with potential and trying to think whether it's worth actually opening a business. Because again, as I was saying, if you open a business, you have expenses. Right away, it's lawyer's fee, notary fee, etc. Sometimes after chatting with someone, they realize, well, you know what, I'm not ready, or you know, it's not worth opening the business now. Maybe I need to test a little bit more. And probably 99% of people are not testing enough before. They just go straight into creation of business and they haven't tested enough. So that's going to be important. And it's called the lean approach. You will find a lot of books on the topic, L-E-A-N, lean. It's really about testing small and see if there's potential before you actually go for a business. So you're welcome to read books on the topic. It's out there. The other thing I'm doing is I've also started an entrepreneur independent workers website called connectstartup.ch. So if you're an independent worker already set up, you have to be already set up, and you want to promote your services and you want to find clients, basically, I've created this website so that people can brand themselves and they can work with other entrepreneurs and other independent people that are serious. Because I think out there, obviously, well, it's hard to get clients to begin with. You don't really know the needs. And it's hard to work with reliable people. So I wanted to create a society, almost an exclusive online society of entrepreneurs, where everyone can help each other, work with each other. I've had people post, you know, what they're looking for. So for example, if you're a webmaster and you connect on my website and you can identify in the group people that need a website, you can go straight to them and say, I'm in the group, I just signed up and I can provide that for you. You find a client very easily and you know it's a client that has been reviewed, so they're serious. So that's the idea behind it. And also to exchange services maybe. So if you're an independent worker, you're a webmaster and you need marketing, maybe you can exchange with a marketing person. They do the promotion for you and you do the website for them, etc., etc. So it's the idea is really to help each other grow the business, to find clients within each other, and that way it helps grow business faster rather than trying to do it on your own. So that's a sideline on that. I wanted to see at this point, because now we're already halfway through, do you have any questions before I go into the model I've created for the business plan? So I'm looking, see if you have any questions. And I'll just take a little bit of water. So I don't know if some of you are interested in finding funding. That's usually a question I get for people who need funding to actually grow their business. So maybe you started something, but you realize without funding, you're not going to go anywhere. So you need to start tackling the funding issue. So the question on the business plan, for example, is how many pages do you need to actually go to a venture capital, it's called, to ask for money, to ask for funding, you know, when you do the request for funding to them. So my advice on that is really to keep it simple. And that's why I think the plan I'm going to talk about right in a minute is going to help you, because you have to think that people that provide funding, organizations that do that, venture capitalists, they get tons of requests all the time. So if they have to go through 20 pages of nonsense, they're going to throw it in the basket. So having something clear, a couple of pages that can really explain why you're doing this, what is your business model, how do you plan to monetize, that's going to be important for them because they're investing in you, right? So really how you plan on making money, that's going to be enough for the moment. And then they can ask you later if they're interested, you know, can you provide more details? And then maybe there's a meeting that follows up. Okay, I see a question from Anchor. Does a frontalier need an office or address in Switzerland? Very good question. The frontalier thing, that's typical of Geneva and probably other parts of Switzerland with Germany as well. Frontalier, actually, you will need to show when you register as an independent that you do have an address in Switzerland. That's to be recognized as an independent, for example, or as a business owner. So if you become formal about the creation of the business, you will need to have a lease in Switzerland with an office or a co-working space. For example, when I started, I had a lease for 1 year for a co-working space, and that was good enough to be recognized. If you're just starting out and you're not even sure yet you have a market, I would just wait a little bit before I get into offices, because they're quite expensive in Switzerland, but you will need it to formalize. This question from Space Balls. Hello, I haven't seen this before. I'm not sure I understand the question. Maybe you can specify a little bit what you haven't seen before, because I'm not sure I understand the question there. How you attract customers. Well, it goes with what I was saying with the pool strategy. So I could do probably a whole webinar, and I'm happy to do it if people are interested in the topic on the pool strategy, because I've been using it now for a while to attract customers. So it's really a sales funnel I use. So, you know, attracting the right customers. So first of all, you need a very good strategy. So I'll just give you in a nutshell what it needs to have. We can also discuss it via private coaching if you want. That's another option. But basically, you need to have a funnel. So the funnel should include something that people will see of value from you. So you have to give something. So really in the business, in the end, it's about providing value. So what are you giving out to the general public or to the target that you want? And how do you get them to buy your product? And it's really not fast, because it's not like people see your website and they buy from you. It's how you're going to build that trust and that relationship with the client so that at the end they buy your product. So I call that the sales funnel, and you can find it also in different literature. I didn't invent the word. It's used in marketing and in sales. So going from offering something for free, usually of value, and then making the person at the end purchase. And I'm happy to talk about that more in detail, but that's just a general idea behind it. Anything else? Maybe I keep moving and there will be questions I answer little by little. So again, on the model, because I found that the 30 pages business plan is complicated. Okay, I see some other question. On the question here, value is important. How do you get some to see the value of a product? I think we're getting really into marketing type of questions and how you use the sales funnel. Because the topic of this webinar is about the business plan, I don't have time to get into details. But again, what I would suggest is to communicate with me maybe offline, and we can have a conversation on that offline, maybe later, or, you know, at a different time, but definitely I want to focus on the business plan part. So I think that's it for now. Okay, so the business plan for me should be something that's very simple for people to actually put together, because in the end, you want to get going with your business and you don't want to spend so much time on the business plan. So I've created a one-page model that works very well in general, and I share it with my clients all the time. So I call it Built by a Solopreneur for Solopreneurs, because it has all the highlights that you need. So basically, the first thing is summary templates with basics. So that's very important. One page to visualize the main parts. That was what was important for me. And again, the legal form. So the legal form is, do you need to have, for example, a formal business immediately, or maybe for the moment you just test the market? And if you have, for example, a financial services company where you need to register as an SA, that's going to be something where you also need to maybe be more in depth, because you will need to get funding from other people, and also for the credibility issue, you will need to build a bigger business. But I think my first page is really already very helpful. So I have 4 pages. The first one is the general information. Then I talk about marketing strategy, infrastructure, and finances. So it's really 4 very simple parts that you can build on. So to get a little bit more in detail, the first thing I think people should mention is, what is the reason for creating their organization? So just one line on that. The sector that they plan to operate in, and I would highly recommend that you pick a sector that you know very well, because if you go into something you don't know, it's going to be difficult to get credibility. Again, I insist on the word credibility. For example, I see some clients of mine that say, oh, now I've done 20 years of something and I'm really, tired and I want to do something different. So I think this is very interesting. I want to go in that field, but they have no credibility. And of course you can do training in something, but you're coming to 50 or 45 and doing training in something is already going to be difficult when you have people that have been doing it for many years. So the catch up in terms of the learning growth is going to be very difficult. So you have to think about, what I like to do with clients is pick something that maybe they need training in it, but it's a logical next step for them. So I'm thinking about maybe you've done marketing for many years, you don't want to do it anymore, but maybe now you want to do recruitment in marketing. So you would have credibility because you know already the different jobs. So that's a good example of a transition that could be workable. But if you say, I've been a financial analyst many years and now I want to go into, I don't know, sales, well, there you will have a huge gap to bridge. So that's my recommendation, is pick a sector that you have credibility or somewhat immediate credibility in. What is your vision? Do you want to stay small or become a huge startup? That's going to be important, because if I look at consulting, for example, you can be a one-man show and do consulting with your clients and be very happy with it. Or you could have a business model where you say, I've created a product, now I want to go big, I want to make it known everywhere. Probably you will need to be alone for that. That's a mistake also that people make. They think, well, I have this idea and I want to grow it, but they're alone. And at some point, they can't develop it anymore. So really trying to anticipate in your business plan, am I going to be a one-man show? Am I going to be a small shop, for example? Or do I want to become a huge startup and have employees, etc.? So I call that the vision. Then you need to think, who do I need as a partner? Do I need a partner? Do I need an assistant? Do I need other type of profiles to be surrounded with? That's also something you need to determine in the general section of my model. And finally, what do you see as your situation now and in the future? So what is your situation now? Do you have the funding ready for your business? What is your situation in 1 year? Do you plan on making X amount of money? So that's going to help you also determine where you stand. So once you have these general questions already out of the on the table, you're already clear in your head where you're going before even getting into the other aspects. It's really your why. Do you want to be alone or be surrounded with other people? What type of expenses will you have immediately you need to cover? Are you going into a market where there's potential and where you have credibility? Most people probably don't even ask these questions from the beginning, which I find are central to your success. Then you get more into the other section. So the marketing strategy is my second pillar. That's extremely important. And I think probably most people don't know enough about it, about marketing and sales. So they think, well, I have a great product or I have a great idea, and they hope that it will work. But you need to really have a plan in place in marketing. Learn about the topic, study the topic, either yourself or talk with someone who has experience in it, because otherwise it will be difficult to get known. So that's when you talk about the segment and the sales and advertising. So I don't want to get so much in detail on all these aspects, but just the message in this webinar is to get you to think about those things before you even launch your business. Is how much funding do I have, and what kind of marketing do I want to do, and how much it will cost me. Usually marketing is not free. Of course, you can do ads on Facebook and things like that, but it costs money. You need sponsored ads, cost money. If you want to boost your website, it costs money to get traffic on it with Google AdWords. If you want to, for example, do forms, you will also need to pay for your booth. All these things I've experienced, so I can tell you they're not cheap. So, and you will need them to be successful, or actually to have people see what you're doing. So that's for the marketing part. The next thing is the process on infrastructure. So what kind of infrastructure do you have? Someone asked the question, do I need an office? So do you have an office already? Do you need to get one? What kind of office? And I'll give you my example. I do career coaching, so I need to have some confidential areas with my clients, because I don't necessarily want people to listen to what we're saying. And that's something that you need to think about early on. You know, do I need a closed desk, for example? Or can I work, you know, in a co-working space? Co-working space tends to be a bit noisy. That's something I've underestimated, for example. I thought about co-working spaces, but you have so many people talking and conference calling in front of you. It's something to really think about. What kind of space do you need to be to perform? Or for example, are you going to work from home, and is that going to work with your clients? I.e., do you need in-person meetings, or can you work with phones and Skype and all the tools that we have? So the great news is that now we have the internet where we can do a lot of free stuff. What I'm doing today is a free webinar for you and for me. Google Hangouts is a free tool, which is great. You have also paid tools online. So you need to find which ones are the most useful. My advice is to try to do as much as you can for free, and to research those resources, and they're there, they exist. So take a little bit of time up front to find the free resources. And when you have no other choice, maybe you need to pay. And I'm thinking for forms, for example, there's no way you can do it for free. So if you need to do a booth somewhere in Switzerland, it's going to cost you 500 francs. You have to pay for it. But if you do, for example, webinars, you can find some free resources. So it's really, what do you do for free? What do you need to do to pay for? So that's your marketing strategy. Then the infrastructure, it's really about, no, I'm sorry, I was talking about the infrastructure. So do you need an office or not an office? Can you work online? So all these things you need to put in place. Then it's about financial planning. So for example, do you need an accountant? In Switzerland, if you create a company, i.e. an SARL or an SA, you absolutely need an accountant. It's part of the law. So you have no choice, and that's going to be an expense for you. But if you work as an independent, you don't need an accountant. You can do it on your own. So therefore, it's free. So all this needs to be planned in your financial planning. What kind of budget do you have now so that you don't go over budget? That's probably one of the pitfalls at the beginning. What type of aid do you need? So I wanted to spend a bit of time on the financial aid. So there's basically the different ways you can get it is either you have a bit of funding aside from your previous work, and maybe you have friends and family that help you get started. The second thing is to ask for venture capital money. And I just said a few words on it, but it's to actually target the venture capitalists that will be interested in your product or your service, and to go through the process of being seen and have a chance to pitch in front of them to be selected. It's a little bit long. You probably won't get the money immediately. And the third thing that's really getting booming right now is the sites where you can get some crowdfunding money. So you basically have a product or something you put online, and people give maybe 20 francs, 30 francs, and you get a bunch of funders there that will give you a bit of money, and at the end you have your money. Except the only thing is that either you have something that's extremely sexy, so you have a very, very good idea that most people would find so incredible that they would put money on it. And you have to think also what you give to these people. Do you give them also visibility? What kind of gifts are you giving them in exchange? And you can also do it if you have small amounts. So for example, if all you need is a couple thousand Swiss francs, probably crowdfunding, you can get it easily if your product is interesting. Of course, if you're doing something that already exists, people might not see the value. But crowdfunding is actually developing and helps a lot of entrepreneurs get that primary budget that they need. But again, you're welcome to look at the topic on crowdfunding and see what kind of projects are being funded. That's what I would do. If you go to crowdfunding websites, you can see what kind of things are getting funded and why, and how many people are funding, because then you have to deal with a bunch of people that have given money, and therefore, how do you serve them and what kind of things do they need, etc. So I'm not an expert in crowdfunding, but I know it can help some people get off the ground, and that's the good news. So I would welcome you to check Kickstarter. That's one that I find interesting. Kickstarter is a good one. And just type on Google crowdfunding websites and you can find a lot of them. It can be helpful also if you're in creative type of industry. So if you're trying to fund maybe a film, or you want to tape a video or a song, you're a singer, I think you can find, if you just need a couple thousands, again, you can find people to fund you there if they're interested in your artistic project. So that's it for the model. Again, very simple one, and I'm happy to share it with whoever wants it. It's a one-pager. It should give you just the main parts of your business plan. And should you need something more detailed for whatever reason, I think you can work on a more formal plan. There's also organizations that do sell their services to write the business plan. The 30-page business plan, they charge you for 2 days of work usually, and they give you, of course, there's a price for that. So you're welcome to research that as well. So now what I wanted to share with you before the end of the webinar is what kind of conclusions should you draw from all I've talked about today. So the first thing is really to be careful what you hear about creating a business. When you look on websites or when you look online, people that say, you need to start to think big, you need to drive a lot of traffic to your website, and they want you to really start big. But I think you need to start small at the beginning to avoid, also failing big. And then it's really a state of mind. If you talk to entrepreneurs, they will say, you think big and you fail big. I don't think it's very pleasant to lose money. I don't know about you, but to become in debt or to lose a lot of money, it's not really fun. So I would say if you're an entrepreneur, you have an idea, you want to do it with some caution. And usually successful entrepreneurs would say, yes, you have to think about your project, but you also need to be a bit prudent. So really try to measure that, think about your project and how you can work it without too much, losing too much money and things like that. The second advice is really to have a good plan. So whether you use my model or some other model, but try to have a plan of where you want to go and why. This will help you stay motivated, because there will be times when you say, why am I doing all this work? It's a lot of free work at the beginning because you're not getting paid. So the time you spend on your planning, on your website, on getting traffic and all that stuff is not time you're getting paid. So at some point you say, why am I even doing this? What's the purpose? So having your plan of why, and also have a list of things that you need to do to keep yourself accountable, is going to be very important. And the last piece of advice is to really stay focused on one thing. So the pitfall when you're an entrepreneur is that you have an idea every day. I know I have one every day, probably a business idea. Sometimes I share it with friends because I think I need to give my ideas for people to develop them. So if you need someone who can give you business ideas, I'm probably the right person, except I don't have time to develop each one of them. And I have one right now actually with the online society, where I need help. So if you're someone who has a bit of time and you want to give me some tips and advice, I'd be willing to take it. But each idea that you have, there's work behind it. So if you're starting a business, stay with one thing that you want to develop. And even if there's other things that attract you, so maybe you like, you want to sell, maybe again, start an online retail shop, and at the same time you want to start consulting and creating a humanitarian project. And I see too many people getting in too many directions, and the problem with that is getting diluted. The hours you don't get, work weeks are limited. You can do more than what you're doing now, so, and you will be tired, and the risk is burnout. So try to stick with one thing that you develop from beginning to end, and you're successful in that thing before you start maybe other ventures. But really, to start too many ventures at the beginning is one way of wasting a lot of time. So it's okay to do it later, maybe not at the beginning. And usually people that are very successful, they're extremely focused in one area, and that's their thing. So it's something I've noticed also through time. The other thing is I wanted to see if you have maybe more questions, as now we're getting close towards the end, and I want to make sure people have a chance to ask questions. Okay, no questions there. What I would recommend is also to read some literature on the topic of starting a business and how you can use different tools to become successful. There's a really good book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, which I highly recommend. It's a huge help. Actually, it was a huge help for me because it really defines. So Tim Ferriss is really into the 4-hour work week and creating a lifestyle business, what he calls, and it's actually a new wave of businesses. So a lifestyle business is really creating something that works for you. So for example, you have a product online that brings you cash. You sell that one product and you keep getting money from it, and it's called lifestyle because you don't need to work so many hours. So it's different from creating a startup where you actually need to be involved many hours, and maybe you need to hire staff and so forth. And the other thing that he gives as very good advice is that he helps with all these topics that you need to have in your business plan. What kind of marketing, what kind of operational activities and finance and all that. He helps determine all these different aspects. So I would really highly recommend that you read on topics about entrepreneurship. So read books on the lean process, which is extremely helpful. The Tim Ferriss book is also really helpful. There's someone named Alex Ostenwalder who's also written on creating a Canva model. So he's also about testing small and really seeing what are the customer pains and how can you answer to them. And that puts everything on the table as well. So he doesn't have the business plan necessarily how I just explained it. You can do that maybe later, but with the Canva, it's really what kind of pains do your clients have and what can you do to help resolve that pain. So, and that can help you get you ideas, also business ideas about needs that are out there on the market. So that's another good book I would suggest to read. And also go to as many events as possible where you can meet other entrepreneurs, because they will give you feedback on your idea and whether they think it's sustainable or not. The fear that people have is that they don't want to share their idea. They think maybe someone takes it and steals. Probably the chance of that happening is very small. There's a lot of things already online about business models and ideas. And actually, there's a difference between having an idea and actually putting it in place. So even if people know about your idea, it will take them a lot of work to actually put it in place. So for example, if you're an expert in something, chances are they don't have that expertise to get it off the ground. Chances are they don't have the finances to get it off the ground. So it's a lot of things you need to get lined up to actually get something to work. An idea is just nothing without the money behind it, the manpower behind it, the constant work on it. So don't be afraid of sharing your idea. Actually, it will be very helpful also to understand where are your potential clients. Someone asked, how do you get clients, etc. Understanding the market needs and talking to people who can actually help you pinpoint where these people are, that's going to be central to your success. So all these activities can be done before you even formalize anything. So get as much feedback as possible on your idea, test it as much as you can, before you start any kind of formal business, because once you sign up, you have taxes to pay, you have expenses, and if you don't have the cash coming in, that's going to put you in a difficult situation. So that would be my recommendation to end this webinar. You're welcome to ask me more questions on Meetup, because I know maybe not everyone had a chance to connect today, or maybe you have friends that have questions for me and they can connect with me on Meetup. I'd be happy to help. So that's my my last message, unless I see some last minute questions here online. Okay, I think no more questions, so I'll let you go for now. I want again to thank you for taking the time to listen to this webinar. I hope it was helpful. I do this once a month. That's usually on a different topic. This month I did something specifically for business. Sometimes I pick topics around career development for job seekers as well, how to be more proactive in their job search. That's important. So I will see you soon and hope to hear from you online or offline. I want to wish you a nice end of the day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.